Brendan Reginbald qualifying through the Team Open with Jeskai Control. 5-1-1. He is playing the Geist of St. Traft Spell Queller version.
Spell Queller, pretty powerful against the Storm deck.
Ely does have 3 copies of Sea Beyond in his deck today. That's a bit off the net deck.
That one's really nice when you have a mana creature in play. Less nice when you don't.
All right, so we start out Ely with Serum Visions on turn 1.
Yeah, I think the reason for that is his sideboard featuring Madcap Experiment.
I was going to say, Sea Beyond's usually an indicator that you're playing the Madcap Experiment.
1 Platinum Empyrean in the sideboard. Way more important to have multiple Sea Beyond when you only have the 1 hit.
It looks like cards left on top with Serum Visions. We'll go over to Reginbald. So the Jeskai Control deck he's playing, it is the tempo version. So we're looking at 4 Snapcasters, 2 Geists, 2 Vendilion Clicks, and 4 Spell Quellers, along with Lightning Bolts, Helixes, and Electrolyzes.
Couple Spell Snare in the deck as well. It's going to be one of the better cards for the control deck in the matchup. One thing you might think is having a high access to removal is going to be really good against a deck that needs a Goblin Electromancer or a Baral Chief of Compliance to go off. Kind of the thing about that, though, is if they start the turn with enough mana, sometimes they just get enough Storm, even if you hit their creature, they just ritual a couple times in response. Ely has a main deck empty the Warrens. You can still lose doing that. Actually countering the mana creatures matters a lot as you get into the later turns of the game.
Yeah, that's why I want to put a lot of pressure, I think, from out of Brendan's deck on Spell Queller. One of the best ways to fight over the Storm deck is to just Spell Quell away a card like Past in Flames.
Yes.
Draw from Brendan was Path to Exile.
Path really awkward in the matchup because all the creatures that you're pathing, you want to do so because they generate mana. Then you just give them a land.
Or you just give them the mana to work with. Frequently you'll path them and then they'll spend that mana on a Gifts Ungiven.
Yes. Yeah, if you give them enough time, they just cast Gifts. They can do something like set up a reasonably large Grape Shot, remand it, Grape Shot you again with only a handful of rituals, as opposed to fully going off.
A second land and a pass from Ely. Now his hand has 3 opts in it. All 3 copies in his deck. So it's really, his hand is whatever he needs it to be. So on Brendan's on step, he'll fire off the first one.
Storm's at 1.
He likes that one. He'll try again. Here's another opt.
Storm's at 2. This one he's less into, but keeps it anyway.
You know, when your opponent starts with turn 1 Serum Visions, top, draw, and then goes turn 2, opt, top, draw, opt, top, draw, like, at this point, I am, like, really concerned.
Yeah.
Okay.
The best case scenario is Ely just left both of those ops on top, and his hand does need help.
Well, let's see what his hand is. We're going to see Vendilion Click on end step. Goblin Electromancer, opt, Gifts Ungiven, Past in Flames, Gifts Ungiven, and the 4th land. I like this one quite a bit.
This is not a very clickable hand. You might just decide, okay, these are the things I have to beat. There's an argument, I think, for going for one of the Gifts Ungiven, particularly if you only have 1 counter spell.
Right, because if Brendan doesn't have enough pressure, Ely will just keep building his hand bigger. He'll make land drops, more Gifts Ungivens. It'll get out of hand.
Right.
And I like what Ely has done. I mean, obviously he topped all his cards, but still, the power of these cantrips is you can sculpt your hand to the matchup. And against Jeskai, this is the type of hand you want to be looking at.
Yeah, and Brendan's hand's just kind of long in removal. Path, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Helix.
He does have 1 Spell Queller, and that's going to be very good against this hand. You see, he ships away one of the Gifts Ungivens. But with so many strong cards in Ely's hand, that 1 Queller may not be enough.
He has to have some pressure, though, and when you get to the point where Lightning Bolt and Lightning Helix actually matter as burn spells for your opponent, that's something. Ely doesn't have a ton of time to work with.
Now, Brennan missing a land drop there, and Ely will opt on end step. This does mean when you look at that turnaround of the burn spells you're talking about, there's only 1 red mana source in play for Brendan. So if he wants to turn around and finish the game off with burn, he's can only do it so quickly.
Yeah, you can't really get Ely from 6. You might just find a spot to just fire off Lightning Bolt. Say this turn he drew Logic Knot, just cast Lightning Bolt now so you can cast Helix whenever you want. You even have that option just as more turns progress too, because you're going to have a couple more turns before you can actually win the game anyway.
And I love the patience on Ely's side. 4th land, looks like it's another pass. On 5 mana, Then Ely, we may see him make Goblin Electromancer. So then he can Electromancer plus gifts. And because of the patience on Ely's side, Brendan, end step, looks like he's going to flash in Spell Queller with no target.
Yeah, and because he's drawn the Logic Knot, this is pretty fine. You just turn up your clock. You still have a counter spell.
Yeah.
The issue is, though, Ely just gets the Gifts Ungiven now.
Yeah, right now, while Brendan's tapped down, he'll cast Gifts Ungiven. And you know, and if I'm trying to guess what he's going to look for, Ely's got all the pieces he needs. It feels like it's mana. It's rituals he's going to go for.
Yeah, and that's usually going to be the case with the Storm deck.
Yeah, we see Pyretic Ritual, Desperate Ritual, looks like Grape Shot, and I think Manamorphose will be the fourth piece of it. The fourth gift.
Kind of like throwing a Remand in the mix.
Yeah, especially with that double Electromancer, Remand's a pretty solid card. I'd be concerned that Brendan doesn't have any spells that cost more than 1 or 2 left in his hand. And it looks like maybe he has to put a blue card in there. So we have Desperate Ritual, Manamorphose, Grape Shot, and then we'll get a look at that fourth card. It is the Remand, so no Pyretic in there. Ritual, Ritual, Finisher, Remand. This is still, I think, the greediest, one of the greedier ways he can do it, you know, by not putting Pyretic in, but putting Manamorphose in. It's still just more value. Brendan's clock's not fast enough yet, and Ely moves slower because of it.
With the Queller here, Brendan has a 2-turn clock, assuming that he leverages the Lightning Bolt, Lightning Helix.
Yeah, and it looks
Just
like
has to connect for 5 twice.
Manamorphose and Grape Shot will go to the graveyard, so Remand and Desperate Ritual into Ely's hand. Ely does have land 5. And it looks like Ely, because of that Gifts Ungiven, has to actually discard to hand size.
Yep. Yeah, on the draw, hasn't really gotten any cards out of his hand.
Yep, gets rid of 1 Electromancer.
Yeah, that card's not doing anything.
The first one actually was very good, but I agree the second one, not great. Now we go over to Brendan's side. He drew another burn spell, which at first looks great because he wants to close quickly, but that single red mana, I think, makes that a dead draw.
Yeah. It just doesn't change his clock. He already has this rolled up with 1 more attack and both burn spells.
Yeah, so Ely needs to win this turn.
Yep.
Draws a land. It is a mountain. Now, because he's the limits on red mana, if Ely doesn't win this turn, the Remand could actually buy him another turn.
That's true.
So, we'll see if Ely can go for it. Goblin Electromancer to start.
Ooh.
Spell Snare from Brendan. That's a huge play.
It's a powerful magic card.
And right now, he has this covered. He can go end step Helix, untap Bolt, Logic Knot. Ely would have to remand the Helix on site.
Yep.
Which he might do.
I think he was thinking about whether or not he wants to remand his Electromancer in response to the Spell Snare, but he just doesn't have enough mana left over with that line.
Sure. 6 cards. Ely's going to pass. If Brendan... We'll see what he wants to do on end step here. This is interesting. I like this. Fires off Lightning Helix at Ely, so that'll put him to 8. If Ely doesn't remand here, he's going to lose.
He's looking at that remand.
Yeah, so he remands it back. But if Brendan draws a red mana source, he should still be able to win.
Right.
Can he do it? Big draw coming. It is a Colonnade. No. So Brendan's going to be short a turn thanks to that remand. He swings in to put Ely down to 6. But yeah, the tapped blue-white land is not going to work. He has to hope that that Logic Knot can keep him alive for another turn now.
Logic Knot's pretty good.
Yeah, 2 cards in Brendan's graveyard. So it's close to being a hard counterspell. On Ely's side, draws a copy of Baral, makes land number 6. But here's the pressure. He starts with Baral. I guess Brendan can Lightning Bolt the Baral if he wants. He has extra burn.
That also makes his Logic Knot a little bit better.
Yeah, he can do both.
You do run into the issue if Ely has another remand. You can be in all kinds of trouble.
If you wait, and then when Ely plays another spell, you say Lightning Bolt, and then he's like, remand your Lightning Bolts. And now
being able to do that for 1 mana is like a pretty big win for Ely.
Yeah, I agree. Brendan does have tools here. If he makes it through the turn, he will win. So spell number 1 is Baral.
Yeah.
Players are waiting. We're going to get out our storm counters.
I kind of like just pulling the trigger on Logic Knot for 3 here. Tap your 3rd land, exile those 2 cards.
Maybe. If there's just the worry though is that if there's just another mana creature, another Brawl that then you lose.
Right.
I think I might go for the line of let this resolve and bolt it as soon as you have priority.
So the issue is you have a lot of options and all of them actually lose to something different.
Yeah, I know. So then you have to like crunch which one's likely.
Right. The reason I like this one, you've already seen Ely discard the Electromancer. If he just like has another Electromancer, you can't have that many rituals. So I like going for that.
Logic Knot looks like for
didn't tap
2,
land,
yeah.
so he still has the option to Lightning Bolt after the fact. The thing is, like, 2 mana is not that much mana for Ely.
Yeah.
I would have liked
so he
to have
might
seen
pay
this for 3. Yeah, if he has a bunch of rituals, he can pretty easily pay for this. He does have a lot of work to do.
So he'll fetch, and look like he's gonna pay. Now Ely has priority. Brendan will certainly Lightning Bolt as soon as he's allowed to.
Right.
But I think Ely's going to make it out of this turn now.
Ely has, I think, a couple rituals. He still has that Past in Flames.
Spell 3. And Brendan should be Lightning Bolting now, I think. Yeah, and there will be the Bolt on the Brawl. See if Ely wants to cash in that last... on the
another Brawl.
He has another Brawl. This is really good. So he makes 3 red mana. That is actually, there's 4 spells on the turn, 2 from each player. So yeah, he can. He's going to use a red in that last land to make another Brawl. Spell number 5. And it looks like he's going to have it.
Yep.
Spell 6 is going to be another Desperate Ritual. That puts him up to 4 red mana. Spell 7, if he's got Past in Flames, he's good. And we know it's there. The last spell is Past in Flames. That's spell 7. We look at his graveyard. He's got a bunch of rituals, a Manamorphose, and a Grape Shot. It looks like Ely's going to get this one.
Yeah, he has remanned Grape Shot already. He has to make blue mana, but the Manamorphose covers that.
Right.
So ritual, Manamorphose.
Yep.
I suppose you can't remand the
graveyard one.
Flashback Grape Shot. So he has to do a little bit of work here.
Yeah, but it's not much. He's got all these opts in the graveyard, and we see his storm count getting, it looks like, up to 10. He only needs to get to 17. As he draws off that Manamorphose. He's got plenty of mana. All right, so we'll look. Serum Visions, yeah, so Storm's at 10. He's got 3 opts. Well, I guess it's not there yet. He's got a Gifts Ungiven, though. That actually may be able to do it.
And that's a bingo for Team Ryan.
Wait, both of them?
Spell
both of them?
Flashback, Gifts Ungiven for 3 mana. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
You only have 6 squares.
Yeah,
7
but 5
squares.
of them
Yeah,
are
they're in a row. I only have...
That's how the game works.
That's dumb. I don't even...
Storm count for 8, lining up for another bingo.
This is ours. Taking the victory lap.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Bingo's too
that's
easy.
Good. Is there a hexproof creature with power 5 in play?
Neither of those boxes can be checked.
Dang. I mean, maybe if we start putting auras on the Geist to Saint Traft, we could get there.
What's
the
one
Angelic
from,
Destiny. He's going to do
that. What's the one from Shadowmoor or whatever?
Steal the Gods.
Yeah, Steal the Godhead.
No, that only makes it a 4/4. We need. It has to be Angelic Destiny.
Two Steal
the Godheads. Okay. That's good. All right. So the Gifts Ungiven cast here just for mana cards. Can cast the Pyretic, cast a Desperate Ritual. Grape Shot, not enough yet. So he has to cast the Manamorphose. Okay, that should do it then.
Yes. Yeah, Storm's at 16. Grape Shot for 17. Looks pretty lethal from here.
And that will do it exactly. Grape Shot for 17. It's Brendan's life total. Game 1 does go to Ely Kassis, and in what really turned out to be a nail-biter on that turn.
And major credit to Ely. Remanding that Lightning Helix, that was not lethal.
Yes.
That was the whole game.
Right, if he waits and takes that Lightning Helix and says, I'll remand the next spell, it's not going to work. Ely would have lost.
And you'll see a lot of people playing combo decks just not seeing those tempo plays. So.
Yeah, you don't counter a Lava Spike till it's lethal, right?
Right.
Yeah, and Ely recognizing that this is a tempo situation.
Yeah, love it.
All right, so they're going to get ready for a second game, and we're going to take a short break. We'll be back soon.
The SCG Tour is brought to you by StarCityGames.com, where you can now order Ixalan boxes, cases, bundles, combo packs, and more. Visit us at StarCityGames.com and order your Ixalan products today.
Welcome back here. Players still sideboarding after Kassis winning a very close game 1 with Blue-Red Gift Storm. 288 players this weekend means a 7-1 finish for would certainly put him in the top 8 going into day 2.
Oh yeah, right in front of the pack with a record like that.
Looks like we'll have just one undefeated player at the end of the day. Looking at the sideboards, this matchup, especially because of the tempo elements for Jeskai, can be very difficult for the Blue-Red Gift Storm. So I want to look at the things that has brought. 3 Lightning Bolts, 2 Anger of the Gods, 2 Echoing Truth, 2 pieces of the puzzle. I'm skipping on, we'll get back to the other one in a sec. A Bifrost, an Empty the Warrens, a Shattering Spree, and then he has a secondary combo of 2 Madcap Experiment, 1 Platinum Empyrean.
So I think specifically against a Spell Queller, Cryptic Command, Logic Knot deck,
right.
I'm not trying to play the 1-card combo. I like the pieces of the puzzle, not in the Madcap Experiment. I think there's an argument for Lightning Bolt in this matchup too, because of Spell Queller specifically. It's not pretty.
Yeah, a lot of times we'll see, I think last time we covered Modern, we saw some Storm players, because this matchup can be difficult for them, try to Blood Moon out their Jeskai opponents. Ely doesn't have anything like that. Lightning Bolts may be good. I'm not sure it's enough to push him over.
And honestly, I would rather draw pieces of the puzzle than Blood Moon in this matchup. I think that the Storm deck has the tools to play an attrition game.
All right, well, let's see how Brendan fights back. 2 copies of Disdainful Stroke, 2 Dispel, 2 PN Kieran Nalar, 2 Relic of Progenitus, some singletons, a Braid, Celestial Purge, Engineered Explosives, Is It Staticaster, Jace, Negate, and Supreme Verdict.
So this sideboard's actually great.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things I want to do in this matchup.
Dispel catches all the rituals, catches Gifts Ungiven. Disdainful Stroke is good enough because it catches Gifts Ungiven, catches Past in Flames. Relic of Regeneratus is great. That turns off those Past in Flames kills.
How about Is It Staticaster? I like that too.
Yeah, one of the ways that the Storm deck can win this matchup is just going for a fast empty, having some answers to that, be it the Staticaster and or the Supreme Verdict. I like one or both of those, and then Negate is also quite good.
Yeah, do you, and now something, if you're worried about Empty the Warrens, can we board in Jace Architect a Thought? Is that too cute?
I think you run the risk of just getting grape shotted if you tap out for that.
Yeah, I mean, like, because if he just empties and you go, ooh, Jace plus go, you know, you could get him, but I get it. It's a 4-mana spell against Storm. I'm not.
They don't even like grape shot you for lethal. They can set up a turn where they grape shot Jace down and then they goblin you.
Sure.
I actually like Engineered Explosives more than Supreme Verdict because it cleans it up more efficiently.
I suppose they might just remand the Jace. You just like can't play that.
Yeah, there's some issues.
Okay. All right. Well, players are ready. Brendan going to be on the play game number 2. He is on a mulligan to 6. Though I think that can be overcome, especially with a card like Geist of St. Traft out of Brendan. I wouldn't mind.
I don't think that Geist is fast enough. I think there's a real risk that you cast Geist and then Ely just wins the game.
Do you think he boards it out?
There's a lot of stuff you have to board out first. I think mostly we're trying to get the Path to Exiles out. I actually like removing things like some of the burn spells. We do see a Lightning Helix in Brendan's hand. That's kind of one of the cards I'm on the fence about. I kind of like boarding that one out.
So you want to win more with Spell Quellers and Snapcasters as opposed to something like Geist?
Right. Yeah, that's the recipe I use with Grixis. When you have the Geist, you know, Brendan's obviously played more Jeskai than I have.
Yeah, it's similar to, like, I guess, a Tasigur out of Grixis, where it's like you're landing a threat.
Well, but 1 and 3 mana are very different numbers.
I guess when you're playing Grixis, you don't go for, like, the turn 3 or turn 2, just like tap all my lands, delve all my cards, Tasigur, go.
Right.
You just get punished for that.
You want to cast it on like turn 3 or 4 at the earliest.
I can see that. See Beyond from Ely Kassis is going to be our first play here. Oh, that's one which should raise some of a flag from Brendan, saying, hey, this isn't stock. If he thinks through it, he'll think, well, that means Madcap Experiment's somewhere in your 75.
That card's not stock or good.
Or good, yeah, something's
on.
up. Yeah, I think the only real answer is Platinum Empyrean.
Yeah.
That said, if I'm Brendan, I'm not that concerned about Platinum Empyrean.
I wouldn't be surprised if a significant portion of this field just had no idea what CBon was supposed to mean.
I see it and they're thinking, that's a strange card.
Yeah, Madcap Experiment's pretty fringe.
It's sad that Platinum Empyrean doesn't have the reshuffle clause. Otherwise, you could play Chart a Course, and you could like hit them with your Electromancer and Chart a Course. And third land from Brendan. He does have a 3-drop. That middle card there, I believe it's a Spell Queller, so pass back to Ely.
Yeah, I'd be happier to have a Queller in hand than a Geist.
Yeah, now the worry, I think from Brendan's side, is if Ely just keeps making land drops and just doing value plays, Brendan doesn't, you know, that can be difficult. If Ely just starts casting pieces of the puzzle, makes land drops,
And one thing about this matchup is 2-mana counterspells are just a lot better than Cryptic Command.
Yeah, Cryptic's really hard to cast.
As the game progresses. If you're going to be casting Cryptic Command and hoping that you don't just lose the game on that turn because you tap that many lands, you need to have at least 6, 7, 8 lands in play to really do that.
On Brendan's side, do you start firing off these Lightning Helixes so that later you can Snapcast them, or do they have to be saved for the creatures?
You get to a point where helixing the creature actually doesn't matter.
Right, if Ely just has 6 lands, who cares?
It's also meaningful to represent a full hand of cards. If you start casting Lightning Helix and it puts you down to 4 cards, Ely can just be like, I very easily beat any 4-card hand from your deck, and just go off. You just kind of give that information away.
When I've played Storm, these are the games I love, the kind of strategy Ely's playing here, and where you recognize your opponent's slow clock and you just adapt.
So this is actually kind of like a blue control mirror with regard to bolts and helixes in hand. You get to a point where you say, if I don't draw a land, I have to discard the hand size, so I guess this is going upstairs.
And you see Brendan, the first player to flinch, he missed land drop 5. Now Ely will make his 5th land, and he casts pieces of the puzzle.
In the blue control mirrors, making land drops is paramount. Against Storm, it's even more important.
He's going to have to discard if this resolves. It's not even card advantage.
Yeah.
Get spell called. Nice. Now we can. That's like because you had to discard if it resolves. It's like kind of a win for Ely. Like you might just let this happen.
One thing about pieces of the puzzle, having a stocked graveyard can
Has
matter
value.
for the Storm deck.
All right. Yeah, it looks like he's gonna remand the spell queller back into Brendan's hand.
I suppose he's just considering his life total. There's a strong argument for just remanding your pieces of the puzzle.
Ooh, I like that a lot.
You keep the pieces, you draw another card. But I think that one, because he'd have to. Well, no, he'd just be at 7 cards with that, so that'd be fine.
Yeah, that'd be fine. He's going to take Remand and Desperate Ritual. Passes up on Opt. But now he's up to 8 cards, so he's going to have to discard. Got an extra land. Look, that looks like what he's selecting. So, Flooded Strand going to be in the graveyard. It's already got Shivan Reef for land 6.
And now Ely knows about a spell queller. So you can pay some mind to that.
Some mind. Brendan needs to get a clock going, though. He picked up a Vendilion Click to go with the Queller. Though it's really scary to cast. Like, you don't ever, I think a veteran move here, what I liked and Brendan did it last game, is rather than draw stepping that click, end stepping it.
You can just
really,
lose. You can't tap all that mana before the main phase.
Yeah, and we see that. Ely says go, end step Vendilion Click. We get to look at Ely's hand, pick a card, it goes to the bottom, Ely draws a replacement. And he's just going to use these remands to extend the game, casts another one out of his hand. And Brendan's going to force the issue a bit. Here's a negate on Ely's remand. And Ely, he has another remand. The question is, does he remand the click or remand his own remand?
I'm very into remanding your own remand here. We haven't seen Ely make that play yet.
That play is so good.
There we go.
There we go. Put it back in the hand. So he's remand goes back. Ely draws the card. The negates just does nothing. And now the click trigger resolves. And in Counter Wars, remanding your own remands is just, remanding anything of your own is really great. I mean, Ely still has a 7-card hand.
2 of them are lands, but
yeah,
this is mostly mana sources.
Yeah, actually he hasn't found business. He has 3 rituals, remand, and pieces of the puzzle. I feel like you have to take pieces.
Yeah, for Brendan it's 0 cards or pieces.
Yeah. Huh. Ely has seen so many cards this game.
You could just leave the pieces because he still has Spell Queller. One thing about that, though, is with the remand, unless Brendan presents his 6th mana source, he can't just Queller again.
I mean, and he may have the piece of the puzzle covered, but what are you really worried about Ely drawing? You know, like, what card can Ely draw that's better than pieces of the puzzle? It's pretty small, right?
Yeah.
You know, you might as well just, you know, maybe Ely draws a land off it, and then it's just great for you.
There's some comfort in just knowing the hand.
Sure.
In particular, if you have it covered.
And it looks like the 2 cards added to Ely's hand are Basic Island and Serum Visions. So he'll cast Serum Visions. Then we're back to his turn. Brendan hitting for 3, playing nothing. Picked up Is It Staticaster. That'll cover possible empty. And it looks like Serum Visions will get met by Spell Queller out of Brendan. He wants to up his clock.
I'm into remanding this Serum Visions.
I like how we never talked about remanding the Spell Queller. We're into remanding the Serum Visions. And that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that Spell Queller's coming down sometime. Ely's already under pressure on the battlefield. He just needs to assemble some kind of win.
And you mentioned this. Brendan does have another counterspell in his hand, but it is Cryptic Command. And that 4 mana that it costs is getting pretty unwieldy here.
That is a lot.
His hand is Cryptic, Helix, Staticaster.
Ely has picked up a Manamorphose.
Okay.
He's still shy on business, but Manamorphose is among the best filler cards for the deck.
Yeah, with all its remands in the graveyard, the Cryptic's actually going to do its work as a counterspell here.
Yes, it'll counter one thing, though it's usually true that you have to fight multiple fights on the actual combo turn.
Right, no, it'll just be 1 counter, and that may not be enough, especially when Ely's building up to so many lands here. And it looks like we might, let's get out the storm counters here, hold on.
Are we making goblins?
If we're making goblins, Brennan's very happy about this. Pyretic, Manamorphose. So we had, we'll get our storm count out. in a sec. There was a lot of
Serum
counter
Vision,
wards
Spell
fighting.
Queller, Remand, Serum Visions again, Ritual, Manamorphose.
So 6.
Yeah.
And there we go. But if it's empty, Brendan's going to get a big win here. Ely's dumping up most of his hand into this.
If you'd like to play in the Modern Open, come see my friend Ward up at the stage. He'll be happy to get you registered.
So Pyretic Ritual brings Ely up to 4. Desperate up to 5.
If he drew Past in Flames, we still might be in win with Grape Shot this turn territory.
Another Desperate Ritual. Now he wants the blue mana because he had these 2 Desperate Rituals and he didn't splice. But he could have, which means it would have had to preserve the blue mana for him to do it or use it. So now he's going to empty. It's a huge number of goblins.
I think 20 of them.
Yeah, but Brendan has it covered.
If Ely brought in Lightning Bolt, he can Lightning Bolt the goblin targeted by the Staticaster, though he doesn't have enough to be lethal on top of that in one swing.
Now, the good news on Ely's side is that he's got 6, make that 7 mana producing lands just here. Okay, 1 Past in Flames resets everything.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he can just make, he didn't actually expend that much material to make this play. So here's 20 goblins. Puts the counters away, says go. And Brendan draws Lightning Bolt. With Ely down to 1, I guess the question, yeah, you just have to make it main phase. That's what he'll do. Here's his Staticaster. It'll shoot all 20 goblins. It'll shoot 1 goblin, then it'll ping its way through the other 19. A swing for 5, Ely's down to 10. But he untaps with 7 lands. We'll see if he can reload. Draws Grape Shot.
Pretty much just has to be Past in Flames here.
Yeah. Well, he drew a Grape Shot. He could just shoot away the Vendilion Click, but he does not. And now that Brendan untaps, those Cryptics should cover Past in Flames, and Ely may be drawing dead.
Yep. That is how it looks. Ooh, another red source here, though. He just has lethal this
Helix
turn.
and Lightning Bolt? Yeah, that'll do it. We're going to game 3. Brandon Reginbald taking the game here. And, you know, some really strong play on both sides. From Ely's side, I loved the patience. I was able to build up to 7 and make it 8 lands. But on Brennan, the sideboard Staticaster, very strong. And early on, just bring, spell quelling in for extra damage did pay off.
Yep.
All right, well, they're going to have a third deciding game. It's going to be our last game here of day 1 of the Invitational. We'll bring that to you in just a minute. So we're getting ready for our third game here between Kassis and Reginbald. Both games, Ryan, we've seen Kassis try to take the game long. You know, even when he had double Electromancer in the first game, didn't make one on turn 2. Was going to make him on turn 5. With him, Ely on the play, so he's going to be down a card, and now mulliganing to 6. I think there may be some pressure for him to go the other direction.
Yeah, when you're low on resources, it's really hard to try to force a long game, specifically against a deck that's so interactive. I will say, though, the ability of Storm to play that long game, especially against a deck that has a decent mix of counterspells, has removal, that's really just a testament to the power level of the deck, and that's just true when you see a successful combo deck in Modern. It's usually not so much to do with how fast they can win, and Storm can win on turn 3 a healthy percentage of the time, but it's the fact that they also can play into turn 7, turn 8.
Yeah. Ely scries to the top on his 6 cards hand, and we are underway. Starts with a Scalding Tarn. Does have at least 1 mana creature. We'll see when he wants to go for them. And the coast will be clear. Brendan starts on Serum Visions. No Spell Snare going to be represented.
Typically, you won't see a Storm player running out one of the mana creatures just on turn 2.
Oh, man, I'd want to do it here. See, that's the thing. You say that, and it's like, oh, when I play Storm, I'd be making the Electromancer.
If you suspect your opponent's very light on removal spells post-sideboard, it makes sense. Though we did see Lightning Helix.
Yeah,
we know that Lightning
and
Bolt's
Bolt.
not going anywhere.
And it'll be See Beyond from Kassis.
Comparably powerful.
And look, we do see a Lightning Bolt in Ely's hand. So yeah, he is ready to fight against Spell Queller. And he does not shuffle the Lightning Bolt back in. He selects a different card for See Beyond.
And especially if you don't think that Geist is in, just having Bolt even to kill Vendilion Click, obviously to kill Spell Queller, can be a big deal here. It also makes your Grape Shot turns a little bit easier.
Right, if you're actually trying to get there with a Grape Shot kill. Brendan will go ahead and shock down to 16, and he passes just with the play of shock, then no play.
Yeah, leaving up Negate, wouldn't want to be Blood Mooned. Ely's not playing it, but that is still a concern. Also, Pieces of the Puzzle will be a good one to negate in this turn.
And I like this. Ely's going to go for another See Beyond, and we'll see if Brendan pulls a trigger. He does, and this is a really bad news for Kassis because he actually didn't have the land. And I think he didn't want Brendan to know that, because now Brendan will start negating. You know, if he has Serum Visions, Brendan might negate.
And that's all well and good, but Brendan does need to get a creature on the battlefield.
Draws the land for Ely. We'll see if he wants to let Brendan know that. Looks like he's looking to go for Serum Visions without making the land drop to try to bait a counter onto it. Then decides he actually would rather it resolve.
You really want to use your shuffle effect before you cast Serum Visions.
Yeah.
There's some nominal bluff value there, but I just don't think it's really worth it.
You can see him go for the tapped Steam Vents. Does have Spell Queller on his mind. Looming here, he'll go for Serum Visions. And there is the Queller. It'll take care of the cantrip. But Ely has Lightning Bolt, and it's in his hand.
Wouldn't be surprised to see him just firing that off right now.
Sure.
Obviously, you wait for the Spell Queller trigger to resolve. This is not...
It's
not a Banisher Priest, it's a Fiend Hunter.
Right. So it resolves, then he Lightning Bolts it. He will get his Serum Visions. And decides on the scry. See Electromancer in hand for Ely. Both cards on top with the Serum Visions, all right. And another land for Reginbald. Looks like the remaining cards in his hand, he has Negate, Spell Queller, Supreme Verdict, Land 5, and one other.
Those are reasonable holdings. In particular against a weaker hand. That should be enough.
I think the last card may be Vendilion Click even. We'll see. Brendan draws another land. Players trading land drops now. Looks like the one land Ely played that turn was the first of his cards that he scried to the top. And whatever the second one was, we're not going to know. Ely will shuffle before he draws it.
It was a ruse.
He didn't want the second one.
I'm going to shuffle anyway. I don't want to have to pick up my deck twice, though.
And it's back to Kassis. End step, he says go. End step is Vendilion Click. Ely lets it resolve. His hand has 2 Electromancers, 2 Gifts Ungiven, and a Serum Visions.
Yeah, no real compelling reason to gifts in response.
Yeah, the plan, I think, is to use these 2 gifts to overload Brendan's mana. Or it was. It would be end step gifts, untapped, main phase gifts.
Yep.
It's why you wouldn't cast in response here, because then Brendan gets to refresh his mana. He could negate, untap.
You also don't cast in response because you
Then
can
just take it.
Yeah, you just take whatever you find that's good.
So, Vendilion Click takes care of one of the 2 gifts ungiven. Looks like Ely drew Pyretic Ritual off the trigger.
That one's fine. It's not as good as drawing Manamorphose here, but he's going to need rituals to win the game at some point.
So Reginbald swings for 3, plays a tap land, and he's in such a strong spot. You see he's going to shock for his land, actually. He has both Spell Queller and Negate, and that's going to be very hard for Ely to break through.
We're kind of entering a stage in the game where I actually don't like that shock. If you have kind of a close storm turn, which is certainly possible, especially if you're breaking through a couple counter spells on your combo turn, those 2 points of life can matter.
Yeah, so the Gifts Ungiven was cast, Spell Queller took it. But we have to remember it's a 2-turn clock. The Colonnade on the last turn will just, and it might be, actually, Ryan, it's a 1 turn. End step bolt, untap, activate, Colonnade, swing is 13.
That's a high number.
So if he has it all in 1 turn, that might change how he wants to play. We'll see. Here's land 5 from Ely. All right, starts with Goblin Electromancer.
Yeah, at this point has a couple of cards that Brendan doesn't know about anymore.
Now, if he says go, and I'm on Brendan's side, I kind of want to just still Lightning Bolt Ely. Ignore the, I mean, it is lethal.
Isn't that 1 shy of lethal? We have
Manaphy?
5, 9, 12.
Oh no, you're right. It is 1 shy. So he bolts the Electromancer. Okay. If it's 1 shy of lethal, I'm really off the play.
It makes it quite
makes
a bit
it quite
worse.
quite worse. Take care of the Goblin.
Yeah.
Invitational players, that is
No, you're right. Spell Queller is a 2, not a 3. So yeah, here's a swing, puts Ely to 8. Brendan makes 1 more land, says go. Next turn, he will have it wrapped up. Ely draws Gifts Ungiven. There's still the negate in Brendan's hand. So Electromancer starts.
Negate should roll this up.
Yeah, there's 2 rituals and a Gifts Ungiven. As long as Brendan is patient enough to wait for the gifts, it should be good. Here's Storm, 3 red mana from Kassis. Could spend the blue for Gifts Ungiven, or just go all the way up on red. It doesn't really matter. Brendan just needs to be patient enough with the negate, make sure he hits the Gifts Ungiven with it.
Yeah, Ely going down to 1 card.
All right, last card in hand, and Brendan did show the patience. Here's Gifts Ungiven, and there's the negate. It's going to counter Ely's last card, and he extends the hand. So Brendan Reginbald with Jeskai Control. He is your winner, 2-1, taking both sideboarded games. And he will finish day number 1 at 6-1-1. It's going to be 19 points for the Jeskai Control player.
Yep, both